And I tell you the thing, it's an interesting conversation around the age thing, right? Often I see business people that you know, it's like I've got 20 years of experience, but really they've got 1 year of experience 20 times because they've just been doing the same thing. And so it's not necessarily.
That's what I talk about persistence.
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily age. It's time in the arena and time in the arena in which you are challenging yourself to consciously grow.
Yeah, mate. I stick with this mantra of just stick to the process. You know, you could be doing 5 things at once, but if you spend enough time doing one thing, or if you've got good time management, you could sort of do 5 things, but you really need to stick to the process. So,
well, I reckon there's 3 rules to growth. Number 1, focus. Number 2, focus.
Right on with all 3 of them.
and it's the you must have learned this. It's interesting to dig into your background. You must have learned this because what happens as an early stage entrepreneur is you chase shiny things, and people spend 5 years, 10 years chasing shiny things until they get worn out by it.
That's where they get it wrong.
Exactly. Until they get worn out by it, and then it's like, man, I need to adopt a more focused approach here. How did you learn that lesson?
I guess I was sort of involved in it just like you were from a young age, but we were always in business doing something and always taught to stick to the process.
Right. Who taught you that?
Old
when
man,
you say
mum, dad, they've always run businesses in a very similar state, but nothing gets done when you only do 5% of it.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is that you actually finish what you start.
100%.
Where we are now, this was an idea that come about 6 weeks ago.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
6 weeks ago.
6 weeks in, we have a fully fledged broadcast studio that can simultaneously stream to anything and anywhere in the world.
I didn't realize it was 6 weeks ago. I mean, it is beautiful.
Live Leader is 6 weeks ago, but our brand, we've been around for 10 years. We've been doing production for 10 years. But, it's not easy. You really need to stick to the process. And that's where, in our industry, in film, a lot of people think, oh, how do you still bring in so much work? It's because, you stick to the process.
You become known for delivering.
Yeah, and you do good work. Every last piece is your masterpiece, so to speak. But and learning from others.
I love that. Every last piece is your masterpiece.
I like that one, eh?
Let's write that one down.
There you go. I'll sign it for you. But moving on to benefiting from others in terms of what we do every day. I know who I've benefited from, family, friends, educating myself, reading books. In your case, who are your mentors and what have you most learned from anybody that you may, come to mind? It's sort of helped you leap that little extra bound.
It's a really good question, man. So I reckon mentorship changes, coaching changes.
As you progress.
100%.
Yeah.
You found the same?
Yeah, you can't stick to the... one can get you slightly off the ground. One can get you to crawl. One can get you to walk. One can get you to run. And the most important one, and I know I'm jumping into your answer here, the most important one is the mentor that helps you get off that mountain.
It's exactly what I found.
And you sort of build a business and you get stuck there. But most of us don't know when to pack up our bags and pass it on to somebody else to then take it either further, or how long do you deal with the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think the style of learning and the style of coaching that one engages in throughout their career, and this doesn't matter whether you're playing fucking tennis, engaging in business, or learning the guitar, changes as you progress. So in the beginning, you need someone to just show you the basics. And then as you progress a little bit, you need someone to show you the advanced techniques, strategies, skill sets, whatever. But it's like when you're playing the piano, right? You start off by playing chopsticks. We all know that. Dun, 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 dun.
It's the only one I can still play.
That's where my capability stopped. That was my glass ceiling. And then you go on to play more complex pieces of music that are other people's music. And so you're learning by playing other people's music, which is really important. That teaches you the rules, that teaches you the technique, it gives you the skill set.
You almost get repetition out of it too.
You get repetition out of it. You then get to a point where you start playing your own music. Now, sure, you still listen to other music for inspiration and you still learn, but you might not necessarily be learning by sitting down with a piano mentor that says, push this key, push this key. You listen to Mozart, or you listen to Beethoven, or you listen to Bach or something, and that gives you inspiration to fuel you and to grow you. But it's a very different mode and style of learning than when you're sitting down with a coach teaching you to play chopsticks. And so today, man, I mean, I do have a board, and I try and surround myself with people who are the opposite of me. And so the opposite of me is attention to detail, quite financially focused, really focused on the numbers, and very rational. And so I do have some very, very good, high-profile, uber successful entrepreneurs around me. But most of my learning comes from reading about Einstein, or reading about, or from Oprah, or reading about, Martin Luther King and the movement that he was able to drive. And so it's like being mentored by the greats of history and trying to discern whatever I can by examining the practices and principles that they employed.
Yeah, I guess there's so much out there, on social, and for everybody that calls himself an influencer, that upon the stages you say you can have a mentor at every particular part of your journey. I think it's important to know which part of that journey you're at and which influencer to be listening to.
100%.
You jump on social and you go back to playing your own music.
Yeah,
I know that I'm anti. Read what everybody else is doing, or what my competitors are doing in terms of their socials, in terms of their publicity, in terms of their products even sometimes. I think we sometimes need to just stick to the process of doing what you think is right, because that's what makes you your own musician, so to speak.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
But
and you don't want to get other people's music stuck in your head, right?
And that's the thing.
Like them.
That's what is happening with a lot of people who say, I can't do what they did because, well, you're doing exactly what everybody else is doing. So you've got 10 people sitting in a row playing the same song to the same audience.
Yeah. The thing is that culture teaches us that whatever makes you different, you should like iron out and round out, and don't be different, be the same as everybody else. But in life and business, what makes you different is what makes you brilliant. Yeah. That's what makes you stand out. Yeah. And so if you're forever trying to fit in, I mean, that's going to be incredibly limiting in terms of the levels of success that you can achieve.
And that's the biggest problem. Everybody's trying to fit in. Everybody's unique in their own way, and they just have to embrace that.
Yeah.
So,
and turn it up.
Yeah. Well,
right? Like, what's unique about you? What are your weaknesses? What are your insecurities? Get all that shit and amplify it.
Well, on that, what drives you? I guess a lot of people see Jack Delosa and they see you driving them. Now, what is driving you to
that influence? Yeah. And so, I'm incredibly driven by impact and influence. And so now, and here's the thing, and I don't say this for me, I say this for the people watching or listening. When you're driven by influence, that's not the same as saying, I don't like money and I'm not, well, it is the same as saying I'm not driven by money, but it's not the same as saying I don't like money. Money is an enabler. And so even if you're in the business of making a difference, even if you're not financially driven, money is the fuel that enables you to get there, right? Money is the fuel that will enable your vision to travel.
As long as it doesn't blur your vision.
Very well said, as long as it doesn't blur your vision, right? And so if you are impact driven, you're driven by influence, view money as your partner. View money as your partner in that the more of it that is available and the more resources you're able to attract, the more
headaches you get.
Well, that's true.
Right. Money, partner.
Yeah, but also the further your vision can travel, right? Like, I mean, setting up the studio took money, right? Took a considerable amount of money. I mean, I employ about 40 people in Sydney. I employ about 20 people in Manila. That takes money, right? We've got a fairly large office in the city. That takes money. We run training and education all over the world. That takes money. And
people don't know how much money it actually costs to do the little things. Yeah. But on the subject of money, we spoke about this earlier, and we both read the same book, which is Profit First, and I've lived by Profit First for a very long time before even knowing the book existed. But talking about money and knowing how to grow a business, which way do you find most of your people, the people you work with, following the path? Is it the one that they go the traditional sales method to make some money in their business, which is sales minus expense equals your profit? Or do you sort of push and support to do the opposite, which is a sales take out your profit, and then you're left with the expense to essentially run your business.
I've met 2 entrepreneurs that adopt a profit-first approach. And keep in mind, I've got a community of 400,000 businesses. I've met 2 entrepreneurs who adopt a profit-first approach. One is on my board and one is you.
Well,
so prior to this conversation, it was 1.
I have done profit first with everything in my business except for setting this up.
Right. Sometimes you got to break the rules, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, just to qualify that. So no.
And why don't, 399,990 blah, blah, do it? Why is it not a common practice?
2 things: a lack of understanding, and secondly, human nature. So most people build businesses by focus on the sales, focus on the revenue, drive the revenue, and then, okay, I've got this amount of revenue, so I'm going to extrapolate that out into the future, and I'm going to build a cost base that's almost equal to that revenue line. And then revenue drops a little bit, which it does because it's either seasonal or it drops off or sales don't occur or it just doesn't grow at the same rate you thought it was going to. And so now you're in a loss position and you're working 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours, 100 hours a week to just chase your cost base to stem your bleeding and stem your losses.
With the hope of growing.
With the hope that sales will one day kick up, and get you back in front, which sometimes it will, but often it won't.
And that's a good point to stick on there for a second. When and how many success stories do you see where sales do ramp up that, people can follow that method and say, one day we went from making 1 order a day to 10 or 20, that huge flux. Is that something that the entourage helps establish into people's minds of how to achieve that? Or sort of, do you have a system, that sort of manages people's expectations that, hey, that doesn't actually happen right away, but it happens.
Yeah.
What we started talking with is that it happens over time.
For me, the profit conversation is independent from the scale conversation, because someone can go from 1 order a day to 100 orders a day a month later and still not have any profit. And all they may have done is exacerbated their losses, make their lives more stressful. Now I've got more staff, more headache, more debt, more losses. And it actually improves nothing, right? And so, we operate on 2 core principles. Number 1, accelerate profitable growth. And so don't just focus on top line, and then we'll figure out the profit in 3 years' time. Yeah. So it's profitable growth every step of the way. And then second is build a self-managing company. And so I find that those are 2 things that are universal wants and needs for every entrepreneur. And they're 2 things that are greatly underappreciated or not understood enough in terms of how to actually create that.
Yeah. And, on the topic of finances and profit, I guess the biggest key turner is that you see a lot of people, blaming not enough money that's accessible to them to grow their business. I know from my own experience that you can start a business off with 0.
Yeah.
What would you tell people that that think that you need money to grow a business?
You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? So here's the thing.
We're so caught up on I need money to grow my business. I can't do that. I can't scale. I can't do more of it because I need money.
Yeah.
Or an investment.
Here's the thing. If you've got a business owner, they're doing a couple of $100,000, $500,000, couple $1 million top line, whatever it is, right? But they're kind of that small to medium sized business. And they're wrestling with the business model. They're wrestling with the profitability. The cash flow is tight. Resources are scarce. They're right in that crunch period. The worst thing you can do is write them a check for $500,000 and hand it to them and invest in their business. Because what you've just done is you've alleviated the impetus to build a profitable business model.
The chase.
The cash strain that keeps you up at night is the best thing that can happen to you. It is the best thing that's serving you right now because it forces you to get really clear about message to market fit. It forces you to get really clear about how you're going to win more business and improve your sales process. It forces you to build a product or a service that people love. It forces you to operate from an operations perspective in a way that's lean so that you can manage your cash flow and be profitable.
It's always been on the edge. When you're on the edge, you're sort of more skeptical and pushing a little harder all the time, sort of reaching deadlines. It's almost the same thing.
But it's so important that people wrestle with these questions. How do I get my marketing mix right? How do I get my sales process right? How do I get my product to market fit right? And the cash strain and the resource strain is almost the necessary push and pressure and pain to get someone to wrestle with those questions until they find a profitable business model. So the cash strain that you think is your biggest enemy or your biggest challenge is actually your biggest gift. Use that as impetus to figure out your business model.
And the scary thing is that the ones who think that the cash strain is the biggest problem, as soon as they have that, they almost don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because the plan wasn't in place to get it.
Yeah, they were too busy keeping their head above water. They don't even have a strategy.
Yeah, so I guess my take on it is you don't need all that money to grow your business. What you need is a plan of what you would do with how much money
100%.
to do it. So if you needed $1 million to grow your business, it's 12 months in the year, you're going to have to split it. But do a 5-year plan, put $1,000 away every single month and grow your business with $1,000.
Yeah. It's very refreshing to hear another CEO say that.
The biggest thing is that we overspend, and I go back to my sales first, profit first scenario, where don't go do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Do your own thing and grow at your own pace, and you don't need more money to grow your business.
100%. And in some instances, I mean, so my view is in some instances, external capital can be a good growth accelerant.
If you've got a good plan of what to do with it.
Well, you've got a good business model. You're a good operator, i.e. you know what to do with the capital. You've got a good team or the ability to recruit a good team. You've got a good strategy, right? So there's all this growth potential sitting there. The foundation is laid and capital is going to help us accelerate growth, and it's going to cost us less than what it's going to add to the value of the organization medium to long term. Rock and roll, it's a good plan. But I think the key point here is, I mean, in the early years, don't think that start a business and then raising money is the goal. It's not. Building a profitable business is the goal.
Yeah. Absolutely. I could not agree more with you. What about planning? How important is the planning perspective of it? We go back to the money discussion. You get all the money in the world, and it's crucially important to plan what you are going to do with it. What's the process to plan correctly?
Yeah.
And what should, if you've just started a business and you want to be getting into this, whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be 100 employees in the first year. If you do, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But let's just say the first 3 months, what's the plan what should be the plan for people to take on to grow at a consecutive rate?
In the first 3 months, you shouldn't have a plan. So the planning that you should engage in and the planning that you should think through is completely stage dependent. So the things that we tell our Elevate members to do, so we run a program at the Entourage called Elevate, which helps 7-figure business owners scale to 8 figures. The planning that we tell them to do, which is, a high level 3-year strategic plan, 12-month operational plan, underpinned by a financial forecast, built into it with a recruitment timeline. So then I know where my business is going. I know what KPIs I need to hit. I know who I'm going to need to recruit and when, so I can recruit proactively instead of reactively. It's all the output of it is all in a financial forecast. So I can see the numbers. I know that we're going to be profitable provided we perform to the levels that we think we should. Yeah. And I can see how the recruitment timeline is influencing our expenses. So it's like, it's what I call architecting the future, which is a 7 and an 8 figure business owner you need to do. In the first 3 months, you need to do one thing and one thing only. Understand your customer and how you can sell to them. And so, like, I was being interviewed a couple of months ago by a guy called it's a very
his name is probably as hard as mine.
Yeah, it's
so you're not going to be able to say it. But one thing there is networking. Part of planning. And what you do is at the Entourage is a lot of the time networking. I think it's crucially important that anyone that's getting into business becomes part of a network somehow that they can feed off other people, such as the Entourage. Tell me about how influential and important networking is to somebody that's just starting in business. So instead of worrying about how you're going to market and you've always got to know who your customer is and how you're going to, and worrying about how you're going to scale. Worry about how you're going to surround yourself with the right people. I think is an important one.
So
that important. Is probably never even thought of until you're 3 or 4 years into business.
Yeah, and incredibly lonely and feel isolated, right?
Yeah.
So the journey of the entrepreneur is often the entrepreneur is typically the renegade lone ranger, and just by virtue of following your own path, you're in the minority, right? Let's say you're in the 1%, and so that makes you different, and it makes your life path different. It makes your lifestyle different. It makes your challenges different. It makes your thought processes different. It's just different, right? And so in the absence of surrounding yourself with like-minded, like-hearted people that are on the same journey that actually get it, it can become incredibly lonely, incredibly isolating, so much so to the point that if you're the only entrepreneurial person that you know and you're surrounded by the other 99% all of the time, you'll actually get to a point where you start questioning your own voice and questioning your own judgment. It's like, everyone in my life tells me I'm stupid and that I should just go get a job. Or eventually they fucking wear you down and you start to listen, right? Which is the scariest thing. And so in the absence of what you're talking about now, community and like-minded, like-hearted people, your likelihood of eroding your enthusiasm or even quitting is substantially more than if you get around people that understand the journey and can actually lift you up.
Your circle is your success in many cases.
Yeah.
And on that, your circle in your network, but also your circle in the team that you build around you,
100%.
Staff.
Yeah. What
would you say? Let's talk a little on high performance culture. What are the key drivers to motivate? Well, so much motivate, but more so key drivers to help businesses get the most out of their staff, but keeping them so engaged and inspired in the business as the owner is. You don't want to feel like you're on that journey on your own all the time. How do you get your people to do the same thing?
So there's two things to that. The first is have a really clearly defined vision, mission, and values, right? Vision, why do we exist? Mission, what are we creating? Values, who do we want to be along the way? In the absence of that, what often happens is a business owner will recruit somebody into their team and then almost expect them to know and understand and to care about everything that's going on, to care where the business is going, and to know and understand how we operate and communicate and behave around here. It's just a completely unrealistic expectation. I mean, particularly if you haven't talked to them about the purpose of the organization, the vision, mission, values on the way in and haven't qualified them on that. So then once they get started, expect them to care or expect them to be aligned is just a completely unrealistic expectation.
So what you're saying is don't be too busy to run your business than to worry about your people.
I'm saying your organization has a DNA and define it. Define it.
Every day.
The second part of that answer is do not hire for attitude, train for skill.
Oh, I live by that.
Do not.
I live by do not do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I live by do not hire attitude, train for skill.
Yes.
You can't tell attitude too soon. And a lot of people say that and it gets me like.
The thing with me is we do hire for cultural alignment, but we also hire for skill. We also hire for capability. Let me tell you why hire for attitude, train for skill hasn't worked in my experience. You're too fucking busy, right? So there's two things. You're too busy and you probably don't have the skills you're hiring for, right? Like let's say you've got 6 staff, 8 staff, 10 staff. You're going to bring on your first finance manager. That finance manager
needs to know what you don't know.
Significantly more skilled than I am in finance. Particularly at that stage in my journey, than I am. So how am I going to train for skill? I don't have the time or the skill to train the skills.
I think it's such an 80s mindset.
Whereas
in retail, you hired for attitude because that was a customer service thing.
That's exactly what it is, bro. It's a McDonald's thing.
Yeah. And too many businesses still live by that, but they don't realize that
outdated cliche.
It takes up our time to skill those people up, but you're paying them a wage at the same time.
Yes, and you don't have the time. So you're probably not going to train them all that effectively in the long term because you don't have the time and you don't have the capability. So hire for attitude, hire for cultural alignment, but also hire people with better skills than you. You should be learning from your team.
I almost want to high five you for that one.
Let's do it.
Hire people for skill. Whenever you pay somebody to work with you, not work for you, but they should come you don't buy a car with no wheels. It's got to do something that you can't do, and it's to get you further than where you started.
100%.
Quicker.
So important.
Quicker. It's the most important thing. And that's, I think, where people bog down, was they employ people to help them out, and they employ people because they need people, but they don't get the right people to help them get to point B quicker.
100%.
You can either ride a bike or drive a car.
And this is a cliche, but it's a true one. People are everything. Like if you've got a great team that are capable and are culturally aligned, that will fuel the growth of your business. And if you don't, and they're not capable, they're not culturally aligned, you need to ask yourself some really hard questions and take an assessment as to how far back do you need to pull your team before rebuilding one that does have the capability and the cultural alignment that you do. And that's an incredibly difficult and challenging exercise to volunteer for, but sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon.
Well, you've got a great team.
Yeah, well, thank you. I do. Great team. I actually very proud of them. May as well tell them while we're here and live.
Absolutely.
Proud of you guys.
Incredible team.
It's been a long journey, but what is new? What is Jack Delosa doing that's new or coming up soon? What's the entourage doing that's new and coming up soon, other than this pretty cool broadcast, podcast, video podcast, however you want to call it?
Yeah,
What's
so we launched a program about 18 months ago called Elevate, which I mentioned before, which is exclusively for 7- and 8-figure business owners that essentially want to scale a business that can grow beyond them and build a business that can work without them. And so, I mean, in a very short amount of time, it's become Australia's leading community and training program for elite entrepreneurs. We've now got an annualized revenue of about $480 million in that body alone.
Yep. And is that Sydney-based only, or are you looking at nationwide?
It's nationwide, but there are also probably 5% of people that are international as well.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely nationwide. So really ingraining and continuing to breathe life and vibrancy into that community and continue helping them achieve the commercial capabilities that they are. We've got people in that program that started with us 12 months ago doing $1 million a year. They're now doing $1 million a month. Yeah. And I know that's a top line. And while increasing bottom line along the way, right? So it's all about accelerate profitable growth, build a business that can work without you.
So tell me, it's not a sell or a pitch or a plug, but, getting into that, I know there are a few other businesses that do that, but the prerequisites are quite high. The reason for the prerequisites being quite high is so that the people who do join these are actually surrounded by like-minded people.
Yes.
You have 7- or 8-figure businesses that you sort of are people in businesses that come in. What are the prerequisites? And do I want to join a business that someone's told you they have 7 figures or they make 7 figures, and I'm now sort of surrounding myself with someone who is bullshitting?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it's all verified. So for us, so we one of the things I'm most proud of at the entourage is, I was giggling. We have a no dickheads policy, which I think is important both from an internal team perspective and any clients or customers that you might engage with.
No dickheads policy. I like that.
Policy. It's so incredibly important. But so we verify that they are in fact doing the numbers that they say they're doing. We end up having complete visibility because we're coaching them and advising them through their growth journey, and part of that is either helping them build and get clear on their P&L or helping them improve their P&L. So we have visibility over that. Really, it's 3 criteria. Is there values alignment between us and the community and them? Are they going to fit? Are they going to be coming here to contribute, or are they going to be coming here to take? Because if they are, it's probably not right. Secondly, is there growth potential in the business? And thirdly, can this program and this environment help them realize it? And so if it's and they go through usually between 2 or 3 interviews before they're accepted in. And so and those are the 3 criteria that we're assessing.
That's important because, I'm sure you probably get it. Maybe you don't get it as much as I do because they know you bloody own a collective network as such. But I'm always being approached to be part of this group or that group or join another entrepreneurial group. And these are the prerequisites. But hey, all you have to do is pay $3,000 or $4,000 to be part of our club.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You're just selling me a product. It's not how you need to get to me.
100%.
What is different with what you're doing?
So we come from a value add standpoint in everything we do. And so in order for somebody to get started in a program like Elevate, for example, they've either done a half-day boardroom session with me, or they've done 2 or 3 strategy sessions or interviews with someone in my team. And so everything we do is led with value. I mean, we can't determine whether there's growth potential in your business, whether we can help you realize it, whether you're a values alignment, unless there's genuine analysis and genuine strategic conversation that takes place to verify all of that, right? Yeah. And so we only accept people on that basis. And so before anybody is accepted into the program, they're going through a process where we're giving them value, we're having conversations with them. In any 7 or 8 figure business that hasn't had good quality, been there, done that experience, mentorship, there will be low-hanging fruit. There's challenges that they've been wrestling with for months or years that are relatively easily overcome, if you know how.
Yeah, you pass it on to somebody else.
And, and there's growth potential in their business that's relatively easy to execute upon, but they're not because they don't have the strategies to do so. And so only when somebody is satisfied that there's growth potential in their business and we can help them realize it, and we realize that as well, only then do we even have the conversation about getting started. And I just think that's critical. I don't see how you could operate otherwise.
And I love that. But what do they get when, you're in? One thing we haven't covered off is how long is the duration of, being part of this?
Yeah.
And how long should someone expect to sort of see, you don't, guarantee a return on investment, and no business does.
Yeah.
But what is the journey? What is a typical journey duration that people should expect to stay in this to sort of achieve and see results?
Most of our members stay with us anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 years.
And why you say 7 or 8 years, it's not a bad thing that they've left. They've just now at a different point of their
They've
journey.
got what they need.
Yeah.
And maybe in some instances we've helped them set up a board that's independent of the entourage, and that board, specific to their industry or whatever the case may be, is what they need at that stage of growth. Yeah. And so generally when people get started with us, they immerse themselves, they start learning, they start growing, they start making more money, they're surrounded by better people, they're actually enjoying life more. Generally they stay.
Well, my ears are full. My brain is full. I'm hoping everybody else is too. I think it's time for a drink.
Let's do it.
Hey, we are done.
Well done, Helal. That was great. Good conversation.
Pleasure. Thanks for having
Cheers.
me. Being here.
No worries.